Hi, I am Dr. Mansur Hasib, and this is one more episode of Conversations with Dr. Cybersecurity. Today, we have some amazing guests once again, and we will start with Korinne Jackman, and then we will bring in Amy Scites, Dutch Schwartz, Katia Dean, and then we will end with Greg van der Gaast. Now, this is an international crowd here because Greg is all the way in the United Kingdom. And the way it's going to go is people are going to introduce themselves for 1 to 2 minutes, and then we're going to have a 15-minute conversation around their questions and their topics. And then towards the end, if we have some time, we will open up for audience questions or just general networking and so on and so forth. All right, so Korinne Jackman volunteered to go first because she said she will be the fuse for the fireworks tonight. We are expecting fireworks from our guests. So
I'm getting
Korinne.
set up. I'm getting set up here. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Hasib, for having me on today. So I'm a student at University of Maryland, and I'm majoring in cybersecurity policy, management and policy, and I have a minor in terrorism and critical infrastructure. I'll be graduating in December, and thank you. I'm so excited. And I've just started my search for position in the GRC space. And I'm both transitioning from another field as well as transitioning back into the workforce after having raised my sons. So my background is varied, and it includes electronic funds transfer, online banking, payment systems, relationship management, developing and presenting training programs, and contract negotiation. Just threw that in there. But over the last 2 years of following the InfoSec and cybersecurity community on social media, I've noticed that discussions and advice on breaking into cybersecurity focus pretty much strictly on the technical side and talk about red, blue, and purple teams, Kali, Python, all of that. But there's another side to cybersecurity that doesn't seem to get very much attention. And so my question is, what advice would you give to someone searching for a position in the GRC space? And how do we break in? And can you identify specific skills and positions within the industry we should be hunting down?
Absolutely. This is an excellent question. And you're 100% correct about that bias in the hiring process and even the understanding of our industry. One of the things that I would recommend for you in particular is to start sharing the concepts around what you're learning. So you could start writing blogs. It could be video blogs also. So what is policy? Why is it important? What is governance and risk management and all compliance? What is that field? Because a lot of people don't really understand it. I believe there are other people besides you that are having similar kinds of problems. I myself was having that same problem because when I first started talking about leadership being an issue, and that was about 15 years ago, I was literally almost run out of the conference. People thought I was insane.
So we all are. So,
but you see, we all have to pursue our passions, and your passion is in this space. And so the best way to break through is for people to see that passion in you and what you're doing and what you're saying. And that is the other reason why I do these kinds of sessions also. So you could also start your own circle of people that are interested in this space and then build the community around that. If they're doing things, you can share that, promote that, see why that is important, etc., etc. That is what I would recommend to break through. Also visiting the conferences where they might be dealing with that kind of topic, applying to speak with those kinds of topics. You'd be amazed how many conferences would welcome the kinds of topics that you would typically deal with because of your background in that space.
So even though I'm still a student, you're saying that I would have value at a con speaking on saying, say, how to use the NIST cybersecurity framework in your business.
Absolutely.
That would be
Absolutely.
so
Because
cool if I could do that.
you would absolutely be able to do, strangely enough, you actually have the educational background to do it. Many people who do it don't even have the educational background, but they're doing it.
Okay. Um, as I'm looking for positions, though, it's hard for me to find anything in this field, because every time I look for anything cybersecurity or infosecurity related, it's always as a SOC analyst, a help desk. That's not where I am right now. I mean, I'm studying on the side Python and JavaScript and Wireshark and all that, but I'm not in that space yet. So I'm not really sure even how to find, like, what are the job titles, or where do I even look?
This is another great point. So you are with UMGC. So a couple of things that UMGC has that would be very good for you. Number one, I don't know if you're connected to their career quest. So that is something you might want to do, because there are companies over there that are posting jobs. The second thing is they also have a very, very fantastic career services department that has relationships with many, many companies. My recommendation is go meet with those company recruiters, and don't say you're looking for a job or anything like that. You basically ask to visit that company. So you say, hey, I'm Korinne Jackman, and I would love to learn a little bit more about your company. Would you welcome? I would love to visit your company, meet with some of the people, and just learn about what you're doing, etc., etc. That, if you can get that visit, that will be powerful, because that visit will start to engender a relationship. And then they might ask you, oh, Korinne, you sound very informed about this, that. You seem to be doing a bachelor's degree or master's degree or whatever your degree you're doing. That's your in. They might say, are you looking for a job? You will be amazed at how many times that happens because of the relationship that you built. Look at the way that we're talking. I didn't know you. You were never in any of my classes or anything like that. But how have we established a relationship? Because of mutual interest and mutual following. And so therefore that created opportunities for us to collaborate and talk. Well, guess what? If I find an opportunity where Korinne would be perfect, who would I go to first? I would go to Korinne, right?
Okay, great.
Even though you've never been my student, but we have established a mutual relationship that is part of a community.
Right.
And that's what you need to do with the kinds of companies that you would be interested in. Target the companies. Most of the jobs are never even advertised. Many of the jobs that you'll be looking for may not even be advertised.
Okay.
Especially
I'll go back to the Career Center then.
Not only that, but also target the companies. What are some companies that you would want to work? So for example, don't look for jobs. Look for companies. What companies would you like to work for? Who might want help? Look at some of the companies that have been breached. Could you possibly go talk to some of the people who are the executives in that company and just meet with them? I am a student. I would like to learn more about your company. Could I come and visit? And that will often get you to executives and people that you would be even amazed of. When you're coming for a visit, you might get to meet with the CEO. You never know.
Right. Interesting.
And so you have to create these opportunities for yourself.
Well, now we'll have to do them all online. Right. So
you have them online, right? Everything is online now, unfortunately. And there are online internships also. So that's another thing that you need to look for. I think I posted something about the COVID internships. And those are all remote internships. So that's another thing to get in by dealing with internships.
Okay.
What else?
All right. So you want my second question now?
Sure.
All right. So
if you're done with that.
Well, yeah. Okay. So last week you mentioned that we should be developing our personal brand so that it adequately promotes us in our job search, and to make sure that our LinkedIn profiles are an outstanding representation of who we are. So I'd like to explore that with you a little more.
Sure.
As someone who's transitioning back into the workforce and entering a new field while doing so, I'm struggling with how to frame my resume in such a way that it highlights my previous experience and my treasure trove of soft skills without pigeonholing me into an entry-level position in GRC, or worse, disqualifying me altogether, because that has concerned me. So I've read conflicting advice on whether to use an objective, given I'm new to cyber, or versus a summary that highlights my experience. So what advice can you give someone like me in creating their resume and LinkedIn profile?
Sure. First of all, the LinkedIn profile is a personal branding space. So that first section where we talk about the about or the summary section, over there, it's important to share a little bit about who you are and why we should connect with you. It shouldn't be like a summary of your resume. Absolutely no way.
Okay.
If you notice my own summary, what I talk about is that I started my business in the 7th grade, and I'm passionate about sharing knowledge. So it's sharing a couple of things about me, and then I talk about leadership. So is there some story, like important pivot point in your life, which is important for other people to know, that maybe you're a problem solver, maybe you are you have some values that are important to you. Maybe it's integrity, maybe it's having a positive working environment. So you could talk about things like that, or you could be interested in growth. It's very hard for me to say without knowing
Mhm.
exactly what, but think about your values. In
Okay.
other words, the key thing that needs to come out in that branding is, what are your values? Because your brand starts with your values first. It starts the same way with any company. A company's brand also starts with values. It also starts with their mission. What is your mission in life or now, and how has it changed? Could you put your mission in a single statement? One little thing. To give you an example, my mission is very simple: help people succeed. Now that leads to a whole bunch of other things, because it's helping people succeed means I have to embrace leadership a lot more, and I have to give them the leadership concepts and things like that. And what is leadership? And I have to be interested in people's problems and lives, that and that needs to come through in everything that I do, in all the activities that I do. So in other words, it needs to be, culture is reinforced through rituals. So values, rituals, these things, and then your circle of friends, your network will be similar valued people, right?
Right.
So that's what I would recommend. And you kind of see that that is already happening, say, with me, the kinds of people I don't associate with negative people, for example.
Right.
If people are positive and they're helping each other, they're fun, they're entertaining, those are my kinds of people. And that's who I surround myself with. I have no time for negativity in my life.
Well, that's really great, because one of the reasons why I think I was struggling so much with LinkedIn profile is because I, I felt constrained by it being a resume online. No,
No, it's
that's
not.
just,
Right.
but it's not. So it's okay to be a little bit more personal,
Absolutely.
and a little, okay, as long as it
Absolutely.
remains professional. So,
And
okay.
make it first person. So I've seen many LinkedIn profiles that are in third person. Like Korinne Jackman is, well,
Yeah,
that's not the way you would introduce yourself, right?
right.
Think of that first about summary thing is, I'm Korinne Jackman. What would you like to know about me? I mean, what is your 1 to 2 minute elevator pitch? That's what should be in that summary area.
Okay.
And then in terms of your jobs and everything, it should be mostly about accomplishments,
Right.
how Corinne made the difference,
Right.
not about job responsibilities or your titles, because nobody
Right.
reads that.
That part I have down.
Okay,
That I understand. It's just
branding.
taking it's not just my branding, it's also taking the skills that I've already acquired over the many years that I've been working, and
Mhm.
then using them to help me transition into this field. I just get stuck every time because, again, as we discussed earlier, there's so much noise about breaking into cybersecurity from the technical side. And I was in a technical position,
Yes.
but it's electronic funds transfer is so much different than IT, but it's still technical. So I'd like to make the most of that. And I just keep getting stuck between, do I use an objective or do I use a summary, or can I even use both? Like, would it make sense for me to use an objective because I'm breaking in, but then summarize all my skill sets?
So let me suggest something. I've already noticed a key strength of yours, and this is actually the first time you and I are having a conversation. One of the key strengths you already have is very strong communication skills. What you say is clear. You organize your thoughts very well. Do you know how many cybersecurity professionals don't have that skill that you already bring in day one?
Okay.
So that could be part of your branding. I pride myself in being able to explain complex concepts in simple terms that everybody else will understand. That could be your opening statement because that would probably define you very well.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
You're clearly a leader because you notice problems and then you solve them. Just to use today's example, you said Greg didn't want to be the first person here, okay? So you said, hey, no problem.
Right,
I'm
do it.
happy to do it. I'll do it. Well, that takes guts and leadership. Going first in any conversation or speech or whatever is no joke. So you already have that talent also, that leadership talent, the boldness, and that's also part of your brand.
Great.
You're not afraid to put yourself out there.
No, I'm not. Because what's the worst thing that happens? I fail, but then I learn something from it and I move on. You know, I'm not, you know.
You are a risk taker and you take calculated risks, and that is why you're also very strong in this GRC area, because those are the kinds of people that are needed over there that have that mindset where they can assess what's a risk that has good reward. So maybe that could also be part of your branding statement.
Okay.
I'm very good at assessing good risks versus bad risks.
All right.
And yes, those are very, very high level kinds of thinking. So you're definitely not a beginner or at the elementary level of anything.
Right.
And all of your previous experiences can and should be leveraged to put you in the right place, provided you're able to wrap around and talk about that, because it's all about packaging. Think about marketing. If this is marketing yourself,
right,
it's all about packaging. You got to put that veneer and beautiful packaging around what you already bring, and none of it would be false. It would be all 100% true. It's just that you have to present it in that organized manner.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, we are at 15 minutes, and I want to bring in Amy for her segment, and hopefully we will get more time to chat later. But I really appreciate you coming on, Korinne.
Well, thank you.
So I'm going to bring Amy in. Amy, would you please introduce yourself for 1 to 2 minutes, and then let's chat around your areas of interest. And unmute yourself first.
Okay. There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So thank you for the opportunity to coming on here, by the way. This is such a great way to network and get to know our industry a little bit better. I am currently working at Cardinal Health. I am the person in charge of all the information security policies, which I guess I'm the weirdo. I'm the person who likes to do documentation and policies and things like that. So you do too. We're gonna have to talk. So it's an amazing opportunity. I just started about six weeks ago, I think. But you know, also with that, I've tried to build a LinkedIn network to just promote positivity, right? So if
Mhm.
anybody wants to know anything about me, I am that person that's promoting a positive light in our world of cybersecurity, because it can be a dark place.
Mhm.
And especially people that are new may not know that, you know, you get bad news every day, and you're responsible trying to fix those things. So just trying to shift that dynamic and being that positivity. With that being said, you know, my mission is to be a positive influence and a people leader, possibly a CISO one day. What is your advice on the best leadership characteristics for somebody in those types of roles?
My number one advice would be passionate about helping people succeed. Because to me, leadership is nothing more than helping other people succeed, right? And that is through really taking care of them and giving them the knowledge, the tools, the power to succeed. That is the way. I don't know if you ever read my book on that or not, but that's what it all talks about. That it has chapters on CIO roles, CISO roles, all of those kinds of roles, and how to not only do those roles, but also negotiate salaries around the roles, how those roles interface with, say, CEO roles, how the CIO, CISO roles themselves like complement each other. So all of those things are there. So the thing is to make sure that you have that strong domain knowledge, and I've talked about this in the past also, but then also the ability to apply that knowledge into a variety of situations. So you just talked about you're just joining this healthcare organization. Well, what are you doing? Taking everything that you knew in the past and applying it to a new organization, new domain, and all that. And that is where that leadership comes in, because that's what leaders are able to do: apply their domain strength in a variety of situations and a variety of places, and you're able to tailor your strategy to the mission of that organization that you're working for. So leaders truly understand businesses, they truly understand the mission of the organization, what will help, what are the levers that will work in this particular place. That's what I've done, and that's what I would recommend to develop.
Good. Those are all great thoughts. Another great question I have is that, you know, in the world today, it's
Mhm.
definitely changed, right? We are on lockdown, most of us working out of our houses. How do you think the COVID-19 is going to affect our industry?
This is an excellent question. Excellent question. I'm glad you asked that one. I sincerely believe that a lot of things are going to change forever.
Yeah.
One of the things is that there are many people in our industry, in the cybersecurity realm, that are so used to enterprises having a perimeter.
Mm.
I'm one of those people that never believed that an enterprise has a perimeter. So I always focused on the information and the data, because I know that I had to support, because most of the organizations that I supported, the people were mobile. They were traveling all over, and I had to support them and take care of them no matter where they were. And every company was also far-flung, geographically far-flung. So there was never any such thing as a perimeter. So that realization is going to come to a lot of people. Interestingly enough, this might actually happen to some of our government agencies also, because many of the government agencies are also in such a mode that they also believe that there is a perimeter. Well, it doesn't matter whether you're a government agency or non-government agency. There is no such thing as a perimeter. And we better learn to work with technology and leverage technology to make us geographically mobile. That's one thing. The second thing is that remote working was almost looked down upon. In many companies, it is still looked down upon. People think that unless they see you physically clocking in, clocking out, that you're not working. But they don't realize that most people, when given this freedom and the empowerment to work from wherever they are, they typically work a lot more. They're happier also because the work is not so grueling anymore. You might be putting in a 12-hour day of work, but that 12-hour day may be interspersed with a chat with, say, somebody's child or spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend, doesn't matter, but it's broken. And we as humans need that relaxation. And I have always been very supportive of that remote working environment. I never watched when people were clocking in, clocking out, or whether they were doing Facebook or some social media while they were at work. Because my goal was, what are you putting out? And are you able to meet your performance goals and requirements? Are you giving innovation and all that kind of stuff? I believe that culture will also change. Education will be changed forever also. And I also sincerely believe that the people that can help companies and organizations in this realm, and so the opportunities for people like Korinne and Amy will be higher, because if you're going to do this, you need to have your policy area well done, and you also have to have all those governance areas well done. And I believe that people who can help will be much more valuable in this environment.
Good, great thoughts. Another one is something that I think is very common for us all. We are in the world of influencing why cybersecurity is important, right? So how do you approach people that don't think security is part of their job?
Okay, another excellent question. So this is the thing. I have found too many cybersecurity professionals equating cybersecurity with security. Most companies could care less about security. They care about promoting the mission. They care about business enablement. So it's all, again, matter of how you propose whatever it is that you're proposing. If the proposal is about security, chances are it's not going to get adopted. If the proposal is about business enablement, making revenue, meeting the mission, absolutely going to be accepted. In my entire 30 years, I never said, I'm doing this because of security. I always said, we're the nuclear power plant, and I know you're doing this manually, and you need to monitor the water temperature. Could we bring the water temperature to your desk, and would you appreciate that? And as a result, I want to do it this way. Well, they focus on that functionality that I'm bringing them, because that functionality meets their mission. That's what triggers them. So you as a leader, you talked about that. You as a leader need to understand and make relationships with all the other executives whom you're going to support, and see what are the triggers that would make them accept whatever it is that you're trying to do. And it won't be about the security, it will be about the technology and the business enablement and your strategy on how that helps them. And sometimes you will find that they themselves will become your champion. So taking your, it would never be Amy's proposal. It'll be the proposal, say, of your marketing department or your emergency department. I mean, I don't know which department you might be working with, but it would be they that would lobby for your project, you see? And that partnership has to be created. So one of the areas that I've always said that a CIO and a CISO, one of their biggest jobs in their role is building relationships with all the other people around them, the people that they're going to support. If you can get that, then people will be selling your ideas. You won't have to sell your ideas to anybody. So this is exactly what I did in every organization. No project was my project. It was always somebody else's project where I was the partner helping them do that project.
Gotcha. Good strategy. I like it.
Great.
Yeah.
Let me know if you try it and how it works. I mean, that would be fantastic to see how you, adjust the pitch and or whatever, and let us know how it works, because these exchanges would also help us improve the field. And then you could come back with a story, maybe at some conference, that this is how you helped, because this is a problem many people are struggling with.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's going to have this struggle. If you're new or in just listening, that this is going to be our struggle, because we have to promote, the business need to implement something. A lot of people are hesitant because they feel it's more work on their plate and things like that. So I love it how we're pivoting from a business need rather than a security need. I really like that.
Absolutely, yeah. I never even talked about cybersecurity. I would never use the word security or cybersecurity in any of my conversations even. So for example, when I was working with medical professionals, I always talked about patient information safety, patient data safety, because they are very much in tune to health safety, safety of the patient. So I just tied it with that. I never talked about cybersecurity. I never did cybersecurity awareness training. It was all about patient safety, education, and tied it with the mission and the work that they were already doing.
That's a really good strategy. I really like that.
For example, nurses were already doing training, right? I would add in, okay, what data are you looking at? I would add in, how can you safely keep that patient data? That's how I tied it in. So it was never separate awareness training or cybersecurity training. It was never separate training. It was always job-focused training.
Nice. I like it. And I guess my last question is there anything in your experience that just made a really significant impact on you in our industry, like something along the way that you really learned that made a real good impact on your life, and something that we all can benefit from, just knowing, given your experience in this field?
I think that the thing that has always benefited me is my openness for new learning and ideas, regardless of who is coming from, because I'm one of those people that believe that I'm always learning every day from every person. And so that openness has been, I think, one of my biggest strengths in my own career and life. And you can see from my own education how many times I've pivoted, how many times I have gone back and gone to school and learned and all that and experimented. And that openness and having these conversations. So I'm still learning, right? From your experiences, once you share what you did and how that worked, that would also fine-tune my learning a little bit. For example, when I first came up with the definition of cybersecurity and the cybersecurity model, I had the word management in there. I didn't have the word governance in there. Except I went to a governance conference, information governance conference, and I had to tailor my presentation to them. And then I said, oh my God, governance is all about perpetual innovation and all that. And that involves leadership, and leadership fosters innovation, whereas management is more about the process, and management actually might suppress innovation because management wants no deviations, right? In an assembly line, it's all about reducing errors, no deviation, not too much innovation. But leadership, on the other hand, is, hey, go to town, right? Experiment. And governance is kind of similar to that. It requires that leadership. It doesn't require too much management. That's when I picked up that word and added that to the definition. So that openness has been, I think, one of my strengths, and that has helped me quite a bit, because as soon as I did that, the model worked, the whole conversations worked, and I never had that cognitive dissonance, because as a general rule, I don't like the word management, because I don't think you can really manage people. You manage things, but people should be led, not managed. So it was good so I think if I were to pinpoint one thing, that's what I would pinpoint. And I hope that others do the same thing, like be open. But you still have one more question, I believe. We still have about 3-4 minutes left with you. If you are exhausted with the questions, I'm okay with that too.
I can keep asking. So for some of us that have been in the industry for a little while, what do you think, what kinds of things can we do to help those that are just starting out?
Mentorship.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, really reaching out. I'm big into that, because you being leaders and mentors to others will literally change people's lives. And people often don't realize that the rewards of mentoring, because all our rewards are not always financial, right? By mentoring, when I see a mentee succeed, the non-monetary reward and satisfaction that I get is far bigger than any financial reward anybody could give me, right?
Mm-hmm.
When one of my mentees last year won 2 awards, oh my God.
Nice.
I actually flew to Florida to see her win. I paid my own expense to go there, because there is no way I would have missed that for anything. This year, I'm hoping Katia would win something.
Yeah.
I've nominated her for 2.
Well, nice.
So that's what I would recommend. People really need that mentorship, and that little mentorship may cut down years of struggles for somebody. And mentorship doesn't just mean mentoring. It is also, so Tomiko, one of my mentees, pointed out this thing called sponsorship. What does sponsorship mean? Sponsorship means not only are you mentoring, but you're also creating opportunities for them. So for example, maybe you have a chance to speak at a conference. Well, could you take a co-speaker, one of your mentees, and maybe coach them in that speaking? So you have that expertise, but could you help promote them a little bit? That little push can set them on their own path, and that would be just amazing. So I think that would be good.
Yeah.
But Amy, thank you very much for your time today. I really, really enjoyed chatting with you. This is, once again, the first time we've ever really chatted.
Yeah.
And so next, I'm going to bring in Dutch Schwartz. Dutch, are you there? So if so, please introduce yourself for 1 to 2 minutes, and then let's chat with you.
Hi, Dr. Hasib. Dutch Schwartz. I'm a strategic lead at Amazon Web Services in the security team. And what I do is help companies connect their business initiatives through their security strategies down to their tactics. So that's my job. But what I'm interested in, what kind of drives my behavior is I love people, I love technology, and I love problem solving. So that's kind of my Venn diagram of how I get engaged. And that really is what brought me to you, because I like following you and looking at the content you put out. And it's really, there's technology in there, but it's always in service to people. So that's really what drew me to connect with you.
Oh, thank you very much, Dutch. So do you have some questions that we can talk about?
I do. So there's sort of a strain of classic leadership thinking that there's been a debate, over time on, are leaders born, are they made, and how does that interaction work? And I noticed that in your book, in your acknowledgement, you talk about somebody who is, very important to you. So I'm interested in, has that been a kind of a personal journey for you? How did you come to this, understanding and approach that you do? Because it's, to me, when I read your book, it's really a personal approach to leadership. So I'm interested, what shaped that? What was your experience?
Right. So this is something that very important. I do believe leaders are made. They're not born. Everybody already has that leadership talent in them. They just need opportunities to practice. Sometimes they may need somebody else to mentor them a little bit, polish that. I call it my job of polishing diamonds. I see diamonds in everybody. It's just that, and I also see that as my job. If that diamond comes to me in some shape, that it is my job to try to polish that to the extent that I can. Obviously, I cannot help everybody on a one-on-one basis, but that's why I also wrote the book, because I said this is one way that I can hopefully impact a lot of people and teach them that leadership. Because I was very troubled when I was going through my own doctoral program, and I went through some of the leadership literature, and that's when I realized that what they have done in the industry is that they have taken a lot of the management literature and basically done a replace of the word management with leadership. Now they're calling it leadership styles, except in the old text, old versions of the text, they used to be called management styles.
Right.
And management does have styles. Leadership has no styles. It's basically giving people knowledge to help them succeed, giving people the tools to help them succeed, making them self-driven, giving them the empowerment to make decisions. Because to me, that is I mean, think about how our parents developed us. We often don't think about parents as leaders, which is strange because that's who often were the first people that helped us become independent, self-sufficient. And to me, that's the essence of leadership, which is helping somebody become self-sufficient so that they can be successful on their own. So I do believe that it's a matter of practice. That's why I'm a big fan of the Toastmasters organization.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about that organization until about 1991, 1994, when I was at the nuclear power plant. And one of the things about being in a big, good company is that they will often put you through leadership training, and they will also provide variety of non-work related resources so that you can polish your skills. So we had a Toastmasters club in the nuclear power plant where everybody met at lunch. I said, fantastic, I had no idea. But those 3 years cleaned up my public speaking. And yeah, and then allowed me to practice, because a lot of leadership is communications. So if you can get the communications part right, you'll probably succeed in a lot of other things. And then Toastmasters also gives us the opportunity to practice roles. So for example, this year I am the VP of Public Relations for our club. Well, in June 30th, my term ends, and there'll be a new slate of officers. And we are encouraged to take new roles every year. Once again, giving us opportunity to practice. So I think that if people are able to practice leadership, that's what we need to give them. So the thing that I talked about with Amy's mentorship thing, it's the same kind of concept, whereas if you're the leader, if you create the opportunities for your mentee to do things that you may be doing, well, all of a sudden, they can fly on their own.
Yeah, very good. That's really useful advice. I think that's something that we can all kind of take in regardless of our orientation or sort of what our specific role is. So that's really useful. So thank you for that. Let me kind of turn to more of a cybersecurity question for a moment, and that's when I look at DevOps and security, right? And so in a lot of organizations, the development teams are moving very quickly. And often security teams in general are sort of chasing them, if you will, right? And so they're looking to put guardrails in, they're looking to do this uncomfortable balance, which has existed for a long time, of speed and access versus being secure, right? And so what would your first thought be on how to engage that? You talk a lot about culture in the book. How would you, because those are two different sort of backgrounds in most cases, how would you bring those together and create good guardrails that satisfy or make both equally slightly unhappy?
Yes. So you again pointed out a major problem that we have in our industry and in many shops, where they have been doing something and their primary goal is to get the thing out, agile development, et cetera, and they don't think about the integrity of the system, the ability to break into the system, and many of them have no training in this. Right. And that's part of the cultural problem, that they have outsourced that whole thing into another team. And that security concepts, the hardening concepts, are often bolted on or added on later. That should never be done. For example, a server. Well, nobody should be building a server that is not hardened up to some standards that is good for that organization. And yeah, the security team might set the standard, but everybody who's building servers should be following that particular standard. And it shouldn't be the job of the security team to do it. It should be the job of every team to do it. So in practice, when I was implementing things as a chief information officer, I never had a separate say, security team or anything. Everybody who was doing anything had all control of all the processes, and everything had to be done in that same team. So it was an integrated team. So think of it as, instead of having an assembly line where each person is just putting in one part to a car.
Sure.
No, I would much rather have all the teams make cars.
And was there a specific technique that you used to get? So let's say that I'm one of the other people on the team and I'm less comfortable with security. How did you sort of give them, not only just access to resources, but how did you encourage them to sort of inculcate the idea that, hey, security is everybody's job. I need to start learning about this. I've seen people do it as partnering, teaming, competitions. I'm just curious, do you have a technique that you thought that was consistently useful?
Yes, as I mentioned, the thing that I did to build culture was that I created job role related training.
Okay.
So I looked at all the jobs in an organization, and every job in any organization already has their onboarding and training process. So now the question is, they're also using technology. They're also using information. So I made them more conscious about what information they were using, how they were using it, how they were disposing it, all part of their responsibility and their job role related training. So it wasn't separated. The technology and the information part wasn't separated. In many organizations, for some reason, even today, the technology information part appears to be separated, and it should never be. Because right now, technology is no longer like an option for doing anything. The marketing organization needs all of the technology and all of the paraphernalia to be successful in marketing today. It doesn't matter what they're doing. A doctor needs all of their technology and everything to be successful in that profession today. So they better be able to use that technology properly, and that training has to be provided to them constantly. So you could talk about it as a recertification program, continuing education program, whatever you call it, but it needs to be the doctor training. It should never be a separate cybersecurity training. That's when it starts to fail. I never had separate training for anybody in any organization.
That's interesting. I think that would be for sure a cultural shift, I think, for a lot of the organizations that I support. So in your book, you mentioned the trust divide, but I'm interested in, can you kind of go into what you mean by that? And for those of us on the call, how should we address that?
Yeah, so trust divide. Once again, this kind of goes back to Amy's situation also, where she talked about convincing people about security, right? So here is the thing. It's a question of, I'm not here to secure anything. I'm here to help you do your job better.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the trust factor comes in. I am not an auditor. I am not here to tell you that you can't do this or you can't do that. I'm here to help you run your business, but do it in a way that makes money for all of us, helps you get your mission, and we all look great at the same time. In other words, creating that partnership. Simple examples was that when I was with, say, a biomedical organization. Well, once again, I wasn't about technology or security or anything. I was like, okay, you are doing these gene sequencing and all that. And so I would go spend time with them and see, what are they doing? What information are they using? And then I would try to figure out, what are their pain points? Well, what are things that bother you about the things that you do, the information, the technology? What could I improve? Mm-hmm. They will often give you the cues of what bothers them. You will find that there are things about technology that bothers them. And as a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. One person told me that, oh yeah, I can't monitor my fish when I'm home. So I said, oh, okay. So if we created a video technology or something that would allow you to monitor your fish from home and maybe even control the cameras from sitting at home, maybe it'll reduce some of your trip. Oh, they were eating all that up.
Sure.
Now, I'm a friend, I'm a partner, you see?
Mm-hmm.
So once I understand what they do, I'm in a better position to help them. It will take time, and that is why I have said that one of the biggest roles for all of us is to build relationships with whoever it is that we're supporting. Sometimes it will take like social visits. Can we have a cup of tea?
Sure.
A lunch together.
Yeah, no, I think that's, again, very tangible advice that we could use. I'm interested in, you mentioned before that you've sort of always thought that there was no perimeter, right? So sort of with that in mind as it relates to data, and I'm not trying to go to buzzword bingo, but I'm curious about what your response will be. So what do you think about the concept of zero trust? And then do you see it actually becoming a reality that entities can actually utilize inside their enterprise?
Well, so I'm not a big fan of buzzwords like you just mentioned. I'm a fan of having goals such as zero information loss. How we achieve it, I could care less.
Mm-hmm.
If zero trust gets you there, no problem, go have at it. Because there's no one right or wrong. The main goal is zero data loss. Mm-hmm. and maintain your reputation. So I'm also a big fan of, okay, planning for intrusions, but making sure that your information is still not lost. So that should be the primary goal. We can often not plan for zero intrusions, but we should be able to plan for zero information loss. We should be able to keep the information in such a way that maybe the information is context aware. Whereas as soon as you move that information outside of a particular context, it doesn't even make any sense.
That thanks. I appreciate the clarity there. So you talk about the Department of No. It's things that we throw around a lot of times in our roles as well. So do you have an example of where you felt like, after looking back, that you could say to the business, "Hey, look, we enabled you to do some really interesting things," and so moving that from a negative kind of posture to, "Hey, we enabled you to do some things that maybe you couldn't have done without the expertise and the talents on this team"?
Yes. You mean examples in my life that
Sure.
happened?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When I was at the nuclear power plant was on a watch list. Mm-hmm. And the reason it was on the watch list was because there were mountains of paper records in rooms that nobody could find. Oh, okay. And one of the things is that people want records and people want them fast and they need to be searchable. So I was a network engineer trying to build this enterprise network, but I never sold, nor did any of the members of our team sell the concept of, we're bringing in this technology. So it was not a technology project. The project was, how do we get this nuclear power plant out of this watch list? And right. What is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is that all these records need to be online, searchable. And oh, by the way, since we're building this gigantic network and we're learning about this nuclear power plant, there's a whole bunch of other things that we could do because the plant was all about safety. And one of the things about safety and all that is that we should make sure that our people don't have to go to that possibly water area where the water temperature is rising because you have this wastewater going in there. They're not radioactive, but you still have the wastewater going in there, and it could have damaging effects to your health. But if we could put a remote monitor in there, that would then allow you to be able to monitor the water temperature from your desk. Why don't we add all these things? So it was all about how can we make this mission better, or make the plant safer, and things like that. So it became that kind of a project. It was not a technology project at all. And guess what? Who was the sponsors and the financiers of the project? Because one of the things in a nuclear power plant was that uptime had to be very, very high. Well, if I tried to go for servers and ask for money from my agency, the information technology department, to build these high fault tolerant servers, they would never do it.
Got it.
Instead, I went to the people who would actually consume it. And I said, here's the design that I would propose for you. And see, we have the hot pluggable drives had just come out at that time. Okay. And so I demonstrated that I have this, it was RAID 10 that we built. I don't know if RAID 10 was a concept in those days. I'm talking about 1992, 1993. Mm-hmm. And I basically showed the senior manager of the plant that I could pull multiple drives out of a bay and the server kept running. Well, he was so blown away by just that. He said, how much money do you need to do this? I said, $50,000. He gave me the money. He became one of my biggest sponsors because it was not about the technology, it was keeping the plant systems alive more times and also recovering, because all these, in those days, disk drive failures were very common, right? Because that was the big moving part. Right. So if I could basically tell the plant, you will almost never go down, maybe an hour at best, but you would never lose data and things like that. Those were big promises.
Yeah, thanks for the personal story helps, right? It's great to kind of bring that home. So I think I'm at time, but I appreciate the
Great. Well, thank you very much. It was very enjoyable talking with you, Dutch. So now we will go to the voice of Cyber Pros, Katia Dean. Please introduce yourself for 1 to 2 minutes.
Hi, everybody. It's Katia here, voice of the Cyber Pros. And I am currently a systems engineer for Innovation LLC, where I support the Department of Homeland Security / CISA, which is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, where I provide guidance and technical support for various projects. In my spare time, when I'm not working a 9 to 5, working hard out here, I help my up-and-coming cyber professionals with their resumes and give them guidance with career development, and also entertaining you all with my Bitmojis that have a move for every occasion.
Yes.
So that is me.
That
So
is
I have
absolutely wonderful.
I have some questions for you, Dr. Hasib. And most of my questions are going to be based off of my clients, because I have a lot of clients that range from student, entry-level people transitioning from different industries, and also my seasoned people, as I call them. So most of the time, we hear the word cybersecurity, and a lot of people, when I used to ask them, when I get to know them, how do you define cybersecurity? And a lot of people honestly think that cybersecurity is seriously just hacking or being a programmer, coder, just that, and they don't understand that cybersecurity is more than that. So I wanted to know, can you share your definition of cybersecurity so people could understand that it's more than just hacking?
Excellent. So you are actually, thank you very much, Katia. So because you yourself are doing a tremendous service to the industry by promoting this concept and the definition of cybersecurity that you got from my book and all my work, which is that cybersecurity is first about the mission. So cybersecurity is mission focused. Then cybersecurity is about risk optimization. We can never completely eliminate any risk. So cybersecurity is mission focused and risk optimized. Then the word governance come in. It's the governance of information. So cybersecurity is the mission focused, risk optimized governance of information, which maximizes confidentiality, integrity, and availability using a balanced mix of people, policy, and technology, while perennially improving over time. So that perennial improvement over time is critical. The problem that we're facing, Katia, and you have seen this as you tried to explain this to people, is that cybersecurity has evolved from 1991 to 2014 and 17, when I came up with that model and definition. In between, there was a information assurance era also from 2001. So 1991 to 2001, was the era of information security, InfoSec. Unfortunately, too many people still use that InfoSec term, InfoSec words. There is no such thing as InfoSec anymore. And people need to recognize that the knowledge and the field has moved. Because the InfoSec field, if you look at John McCumber's work, so that is also something that I share in the book. John McCumber's work, 1991. Pioneers in the field. He's the one who invented InfoSec as a word and a model and presented it in a conference in Baltimore in 1991. That model had security awareness as part of the thing. It didn't have people, policy, and technology, the way I mentioned it. It didn't have the word people in there. It had security awareness. And that is where this whole culture of security awareness has also come in. In 2001, however, people realized, no, security awareness is not really working. That's number one. Number two, the old model was too static, because cybersecurity, or information assurance, as they were calling it, is a dynamic, perpetually improving process. You must continuously monitor, continuously patch, because the old world was all about compliance. You check the box, you're compliant, you're good. But compliance means nothing, right? Because that's a state. And cybersecurity is not a state. Cybersecurity is a process. Cybersecurity is perpetual innovation. And so in 2001, that model came up with that arrow that you will see in my book and all the models, which is that perpetual innovation arrow. So in 2001, they came up with the perpetual innovation and the people. But then when I finished my doctoral degree and I was going through the doctoral degree, I was saying, wait a minute, for my entire career, I have never done anything without focusing on the mission. And the mission of, say, a healthcare organization is different from a education organization or a mom and pop pizza shop or whatever. So my strategy has to be tailored to the mission first. So just pure information assurance is not going to work. I must have that foundation of mission. Then the risk profile of any company is different. The risk capacity of managing how much you can internalize as a risk and how much you can outsource and what you can accept as an acceptable form of risk is also different. Then your priorities will be different. Like, what are you going to do first? And so this is why you kind of need that whole risk management concept, the mission, risk management, and then the governance, so that you can build a culture around these practices. And those are the things that are added into the model. Unfortunately, a lot of people still are not aware of this. And so this is why we need to continue to educate and help people understand that these areas are there. And if you look at the breaches, these are the areas where things are failing. Things are failing in the leadership areas. And this is one of the reasons why I've also talked at many conferences where sometimes people say, oh, this thing is a male-dominated field. And I've often said, but actually, the parts of it that are male-dominated are the technology parts. Many people actually are not doing the policy, the leadership aspects of cybersecurity. I have said that that is a huge opportunity area for whoever wants to embrace that area, whether it's men, women, I could care less, as long as it's done by somebody, because that area needs to be done.
Thanks for that response. Okay, so my next question is, and I run into this all the time, and I try to encourage my clients all the time to let them know that they have the transferable skills to get into cybersecurity. It's just that they don't realize it. So this is for all my people that got the master's degrees like me. Yeah. No, that they have master's degrees. And I just want you to, what kind of advice do you have for people that have a master's degree that feel as though they don't have the experience because they feel like, well, I'm not a cyber, but you really are, to make sure that they don't actually sell themselves short by actually trying to apply for an entry-level job? Because at the end of the day, you earned your master's degree and you actually deserve to get a job that aligns with their master's degree. So what kind of advice can you give to those type of people that's actually doubting themselves because they feel as though they don't have the experience along with that degree that they work so hard to get?
Sure. So this is once again another important question that once they understand that definition of cybersecurity, they will see that the leadership aspects of cybersecurity is so critical. And then people who have earned a master's degree, they're essentially, every master's degree program is almost like an executive preparation program. You will often see many executive jobs require that master's degree because they're expecting that level of brain complexity where, once again, you're able to apply your domain skills to a wide variety of situations, and you have that communication skills, that leadership skills. And that is why people who have already deep experience in anything are probably already up there. Their brain capacity is already up there. So they should be looking for jobs, not entry level, because if you target the wrong job, again, you're not going to get the job. So there are some jobs that look for the master's degree, look for that, and don't think yourself as entry level. I think you yourself are a very good example of that. And this is why I love that people like you are going out there and sharing your leadership and sharing your knowledge. Yes, you have a job, but you're also spending a lot of your voluntary time and some of your paid time in diversifying and being that leader in that industry, giving that mentorship. You're almost doing things that brought me to education. I could have been a CIO for the rest of my life and probably would have made much more money. But I saw that the big problem in the industry wasn't that a company needs a great CIO, because I could only be a good CIO for one company. But as an educator, I could benefit a lot of people. So I think that more people like you should be out there educating, helping, training, mentoring. This is what I said to Korinne, Amy also, Korinne also. She's bringing all that knowledge in there and the passion in there. So maybe she creates other people who are interested in that area, similar to what you're doing also. I'm sure I see your work all the time. Your clients are saying you help them translate their previous jobs and their previous experiences to talk about themselves better. Because once they understand that cybersecurity has a lot of leadership components, a lot of communications components, well, all of a sudden, all that leadership experience that you have is translatable. All that communications, translatable. All that writing, translatable. How much writing did we make you do? Problem solving.
A lot.
Root cause
But
analysis.
I appreciate it though, because that's why I got the best blog ever. So I appreciate it.
Right. So yeah, I mean, what was funny was when I was designing the master's program, a lot of people were complaining, why are you making us write so much and this and that? And I'm like, oh my God. At first I was so scared. Actually, Katia is the first graduate. For those of you who don't know, Katia is the first graduate from the program that I completely redesigned and overhauled. And after her graduation, I actually breathed a sigh of relief because I saw that people could succeed and the changes that it does to them. So after that, I became much more rigid about standing my ground about the program. I'm like, I'm not changing too much over here. We already have a great program.
Yes, thank you for that. And my last question, as we all see this all the time, and I share everybody's pain because I'm tired of this as well. So the unrealistic job requirements I see from entry level, mid level, senior level, with ridiculous first years of experience, and then of course the ridiculous certifications. What type of advice do you have for companies that could actually improve their either the job requirements so they could actually fill the jobs that are vacant? Because at the end of the day, I don't care what nobody says, there really is no skills gap. The problem is the requirements, because people actually have the skills to fill those roles. So what advice can you give the companies to actually advise them to approve these requirements?
Sometimes when I look at those requirements, I'm almost thinking that they may be using those as a excuse for not hiring or filling certain positions, because it doesn't make sense to me, because they will often keep these positions vacant for years at a time. But you see, it makes their management or their whoever they report to feel like they may be doing something. And because I cannot make sense of it, because what you're saying has been happening for quite some time. This is not new. When I started looking at this initially, 2013, 2014, when I was doing the research for my book and some of those chapters, I saw the same thing at that time. Here we are 7, 8 years later, lots and lots of people have been railing about it, but you still see people spouting it off as an excuse. We have a skills gap. We can't find the people that are qualified. And to a certain extent, that excuse has been working for them also. So I keep pointing out for them, to everybody as much as possible, that is it possible that they're actually using that as an excuse for not doing the hiring, not spending the money to get the right people, and then keep the people who may not necessarily be qualified in positions of power? Because sometimes hiring a competent person may reveal the incompetence of some of the people that are in the positions of power. So it could often be that. I don't know what is the correct answer to that, because it doesn't make sense to me. That one doesn't make sense to me. Because genuinely people who want to hire have always been able to hire. I have never had a problem hiring, never. Because I always put realistic, because people who really want to hire are going to be very engaged in that whole hiring process. When I was hiring for very difficult positions, what did I say to HR? If somebody had this level of degrees and this level of qualification, I want to see that resume. I don't want you to screen it out at the HR level. And if they really wanted to hire, they would probably be very engaged. So that's what I would say. But anyway, I think that we are ready for our next guest, Greg. Thank you very much, Katia. I really enjoyed talking with you. Greg Vander Gaast, are you ready for?
I am ready for you.
Great.
Let me put you on the screen.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves in 1 to 2 minutes. And then
1 to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I've got a timer here just to make sure I don't go too far. I'll go over the timer. Gosh, I'm apparently one of those people who just started out in information security. Everybody says, you start in IT and then you go into security. No, I always started out in security. I think I was, 15 or 16 years old, saw the movie Hackers. Angelina Jolie's in it. That must be how you get girls. Okay. So next thing you know, you're downloading Linux. I'm only half joking, of course. And it took about, 6 to 9 months, and then something about the largest mass hack in history and a nuclear weapons program, and various things happened. And then I got my first job not long after that when some federal agents came to my house. So that's that's how I got my first job, and I've been doing this for 22 years now. And I started out, technical, but always self-taught. Just read hundreds and hundreds of books when I was young. I remember being 16 years old and reading like the 3 TCP/IP illustrated volumes and all that stuff. And after that, got some jobs in consultancies, this and that. And to be honest, it must be around that age. By the way, I still think we're related, because other than some terminology, which you say InfoSec doesn't work anymore, doesn't exist anymore, and I just published a book about it. But other than that, I swear I've never met someone that saw things kind of where I do now. Because I think the only skills gap we have is leadership. I mean, I started technical, and I became a consultant contractor, and I made lots of money in the early PCI days because everybody had budget to put in IDS and rack boxes and stuff. And after that, I went like a little bit more into management, and then I had to start thinking like, how do I actually? I'm not in it to do techie stuff and make money anymore. I need to actually protect these people in this organization. And that's when I was like, you know what, the way we're approaching this doesn't make sense. You can't just keep throwing money and technology at it, and you need to be engaged, and we need to know what's going on. And all of a sudden I was seen as an alien in the industry. And I wasn't yet mature enough in my own, I didn't, have the leadership traits. I didn't have that stuff yet. And it became quite difficult. And I actually kind of stepped away from IT for a while. It went quite badly, and then I had to go back to IT because I needed a job. And sure enough, first job was for a company called Capita. It was an account that had gone through 9 heads of security in 5 years. And I came in there, and all of a sudden I was in charge of the BBC's TV licensing. And within 3 days, the client relationship was completely turned around. You're the first person that's being honest with us, having a strategy, this and that. And within 3 months, they told the CISO, no, we want him to report directly to the managing director because he's solving all the problems. And I got fired for it 2 days later. So that set me off on this. There are so many issues there, and they were all leadership related. That kind of galvanized what I was coming to. And then I had this 9-month unemployment stint, because if you focus on leadership, if you focus on addressing root causes and on the approach, well, none of the job specs fit what you do, because everybody wants a red teamer or a SOC analyst or this or that. So that's where I am. So because we agree on absolutely everything, and I think you've covered many of the things I was kind of going to touch on with everybody else, I don't really have a question. My question would be, where do we go from here? Because there's 2 things. There's the proactive security argument, which is the car factory analogy. Of course, you have your own car factory analogy, but it's the different car factory analogy in that the pieces are going into the factory, we're putting everything together, and then we're throwing it in the parking lot from the 3rd floor, and the car is smashed to bits. And people converge on the car, move it out of the way, because more are coming, falling down, and what's broken, what do we need to fix, how much is it going to cost, what tooling do we need, what parts, what process, hire more people, get a forklift, get some tooling, get some consultants, put together a framework, and next thing you know, you've got 1,000 people, millions, certifications, processes, frameworks, and no one's looking at, what if we just make the cars come out the right floor and we won't have to deal with 99% of the stuff.
Right.
So that is number one. And that, so the first thing is the approach, and that we have to change. The second thing, which I think is related to the first one, is the people. We are indoctrinating the hell out of people. And I saw Korinne started at the beginning, and I can see Korinne talking, and I can see her mentioning what she's dealing with, and I can see the uncertainty. And I've seen you for 5 minutes, she's nodding, and I can tell this is someone with phenomenal soft skills who could really, really contribute.
Absolutely.
Better than most people that have been in the industry for 10 years.
Correct. I noticed that right away also, yes.
And this is the analogy I give. If I take a 10-year CISSP and I put him in that car factory, he's going to run and start changing body panels. But I can take someone fresh out of university with an open mind, and he's just going to point at the cars falling from the 3rd floor and say, that's really stupid. Exactly, go fix that.
Right.
And the beauty of it is that requires engagement. It requires much simpler common sense. It doesn't require the incredibly siloed, deep technical skills of how to use that particular drill to get that rivet out, because you just need to go and talk to people to make the cars come out the bottom. It's much simpler. It's much more approachable.
Right.
And I still see people, like you mentioned, there's really, really good people out there who are struggling for work. They're without work in security for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And they're the thinkers. It's the thinkers quite often that struggle to find the work. So how can we shift? And you mentioned some other things, as you left CIO to go into education because you could spread that out. Now, I was actually misquoted, but I said that this is probably my last real permanent information security job because I find it too frustrating. When I said that, it was at my last talk. I didn't mean my current job. I mean, when I'm done and I move on, I'm going to struggle to find another job because no one wants to hire people that actually fix problems in this industry.
Right. So,
but if I'm just going to finish there and leave it to you.
Yeah.
But I started speaking last year, and I keep getting like, that's the best talk of the conference, this and that. And now I've got a book, and I feel like, and I'm going to do some leadership courses as well. And I find the same people that have that defensiveness, because I don't want to hire someone who may know more than me, are, however, willing to listen to you to improve themselves. And that's a great way of passing on that knowledge and that kind of leadership spirit and altruism. And then they can bring the change. So that's kind of my planned route until coronavirus ruined everything, of course.
Right.
But how do you feel we can shift the industry to consider people like Korinne and to stop with these? And I absolutely, you know, if you want to hire someone, you'd be engaged. I had a talk with a vendor today about a managed SOC service because it's so hard to find analysts. And I'm like, what do you mean?
So
I can find 5 in 24 hours. Go on.
Yes, along those lines, I'm going to make a suggestion. So this is a suggestion that I've actually made to every one of my students and mentees, which is that don't call yourself an information security person or a security person or anything like that. Call yourself a cybersecurity leader. That is the biggest reason why I even titled the book Cybersecurity Leadership, because it's all about branding yourself also. If you think about all of the people that we talked with today, including you, you are not a security person. You are a leader first. You just happen to apply that skill set to a discipline area. You're trying to help your company succeed. And oh, by the way, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information is also core to your being. That's one of the things you're very interested in. I don't think any of you are security people. Your passion is to help your companies succeed. And without those mental complexity, without that communication skills, without the understanding of the business, root causes of problems, and your passion to fix those root causes, none of us would be successful. That's what makes us successful. It's that leadership aspects. So yes, I have never told anybody that I am in security, even though I actually have a Doctor of Science in the field. I have a CISSP, but I never brand myself as a security person, because that would immediately put me in a box and much below. Think about it this way. A strong cybersecurity professional today could also serve as the CEO of the company. If you cannot function as the CEO of the company, then you're not doing your job right. Because in order to truly do your job right, you would first have to understand what is that CEO after. Because a cybersecurity leader's job is to affect and impact the entire organization, all aspects of the organization, and make them successful. So every place where I was a chief information officer, I was a chief information officer for 12 years. Every place where I was chief information officer, I could have run the company. Because if I couldn't run the company, then I don't know my job well enough.
Right.
So my first job is to find out the mission. What are they interested in? Make those relationships, and then make sure that whatever digital strategy. So to me, it has always been about digital strategy that powers the mission forward. And if you notice, the subtitle of the book is what? Powering the Modern Organization, Cybersecurity Leadership. And the subtitle of the book is Powering the Modern Organization, because I feel very passionately that there is no company today that can do without a digital strategy. And that's what all of you enable.
You drive home something quite incredibly simple and powerful, because I agree with absolutely everything you said. And before, you were saying how when you were CIO, you didn't have security. You just made it all integrated. I'm a level below, but my job as security is to drive that integration. Even though I don't have the authority, I just use the influence and drive it in there. But the word you said is you are leaders. And I find it, and I'm sure everyone here agrees, I think we all still find it uncomfortable to be labeled as leaders. We believe in all these values. We have all these, because I know every single person here. I've not spoken, but I've seen all these people for 6 months to a year on LinkedIn.
Right.
I know they all have what it takes. It only takes a minute.
Absolutely. This is the reason why I started this Conversations also series, because I was thinking that if I start putting all these leaders together, these passionate people who are trying to make a difference in whichever way, and then we start creating this series of conversations, maybe that's a way that will help, because each of you have a sphere of influence. And I'm hoping that this educational content that we're producing will hopefully help a lot of people start understanding our field better.
I think it's the someone made something similar, a comment about the post I made today, where someone said some deriding comments about me because of the book, and then other people came in. But it's the people that think have all these reservations, and I think we've identified that all these people are technically leaders, but for that reason they have a modesty that kind of prevents them from calling themselves leaders.
Yeah.
And perhaps we should be louder about it, and that's the point you made. Yeah.
Yes.
We
I make myself very vulnerable. I don't have all the answers. As a matter of fact, I tell that to my students.
Yeah.
I basically have told every one of my students that just because I'm the professor, don't always take whatever I give you as gospel.
Yeah.
Feel free to challenge, feel free to add to the knowledge, because through that constructive criticism, my own knowledge might be enhanced. And oh, by the way, guess what? Knowledge has to build upon knowledge. So I am expecting fully every one of you to take whatever knowledge I'm giving you, and then you will eventually build upon that.
Yeah.
Contribute to it, because you have to. My own knowledge didn't come out of a vacuum. It came from all the people who provided the knowledge before me. That knowledge is given to me. Yeah. So now I'm building upon that. So for example, without the 1991 model, information security, I could never have contributed the cybersecurity model or the definition. That work was already done for me beautifully. All these beautiful things that has already been done, established. I just added a refinement in a way that, think about it, you, Greg, you are doing some of that also.
Yeah, and one of the things I actually wrote is, if you do exactly what I am doing, you're probably doing it wrong, because only you are in a position to know what's best for you.
Right.
You know, inspire yourself from what I'm doing and take what's useful to you and build on top of it and improve it. But if you're doing exactly what I'm doing, then you're not thinking. And that's the problem today, that we're not thinking, we're just blindly going ahead. And we need that thought leadership.
Correct. So I actually love the fact that you're doing, the terminology doesn't really matter. In a way, you may be coming at it from a different angle. If you think about it, I'm a little bit more, I guess, open about what I'm doing. You aren't doing InfoSec, even though you're calling it InfoSec.
Yeah, I don't know what the words mean anymore. I treat the words as, as English words. I don't have any industry association. I don't have any academic bias towards certain words. It's funny how focused people get on what a word means. People will, fights in the streets about cyber versus InfoSec.
Correct, they do. So I don't fight about the words. This is why I say that, hey, whatever gets you to the objective.
Exactly.
That is important. So I saw, this was why I was so interested in your work also, because I saw that you were approaching it using some different terminology, but you were basically selling the same thing that I was selling, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I had the same thing with you. I was like, well, I don't quite disagree there. And then you see, oh, but he actually means this with it. So yes, I do agree. So yeah, it's just because we had, I don't know, brothers from another mother or something. Well, it's just our mothers spoke different languages. Yeah. I don't know.
But it is important that we use that what do you call that differences, but trying to get to the same objective. So it's like I may be taking, say, the long road, you're taking the highway.
Yeah. No, but I think it's actually important to have, variety is the spice of life. So to have different people use different terminology for the same thing keeps you sharp, because it means you have to keep thinking about what they mean. And
Not only that, but you have your own spheres of influence and your own community that kind of resonates with you. And through that thought leadership, you're able to still spread the right knowledge.
Yeah.
Because of your brand and your influence in UK, remember, you actually helped when I was giving away 100 copies of Cybersecurity Leadership audiobook, and I had nobody to give it to in the UK. You helped me give it away, and it was gone literally within a week or so, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that's true.
What did you do? You just help share that knowledge to your sphere of influence, and we need those kinds of people. That's why
I just wish we could, if there's a way. There's no easy answer. I just wish there was a way we could influence more people to think that way and to take chances on people, and to appreciate human potential, for example. Because I see people like Korinne, I see people, attitude, so eager. You just have to put a little bit, and people think, oh, it takes so much training and cost and time and mentoring effort. It really doesn't. You just let them follow you along, and they just pick it up so easily from you. They're so happy to do it. I wish there was a more systematic way of spreading that, but I guess it's all personal initiative.
It is happening, and the thing is that, sadly enough, this is going to take a little time. That's part of the reason that I came to education, because I was frustrated with the MBA education that was happening. So that's another pain point of mine that you kind of touched on, because MBA schools were started in the 1970s or so.
Okay.
But for a different era. It was that era of finance. It was that era of assembly lines and things like that. So management was very important. Process was very important.
Mm-hmm.
Technology in the MBA program is completely non-existent. Cybersecurity education in the MBA program is completely non-existent. So I first tried to fix that. And I took my cybersecurity leadership courses and said, would you add this to your MBA program? And I was literally said, no. We already are the world's #1 MBA program. Why do I need this? So I said, okay, so then I have to come up with a different strategy. If they're not going to embrace cybersecurity leadership, then I have to embrace business into the cybersecurity curriculum and make that the modern executive preparation program. So if you think about all the graduates that I've been creating, they are not technology focused, they are business focused. I mean, and Katia is a great example of that. Every one of my graduates are of that ilk. They are the business leaders of the future. And I feel at some point, these are the leaders that are going to be the new executives of all companies. As many as they get to power, that's when it's going to start changing, because these people think very differently. For them, digital strategy is the only way to run the modern company, not finance, not laying off people and things like that. So that's another thing that I've been teaching people, that in the accounting system, people are treated as an expense. But if you treat people as an expense and you never account for the profits that they're producing for you, then you're missing the boat.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting.
Right? So anyway, we have exhausted our time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up now for discussions with everybody. And I'm going to still continue recording, because who knows, we may get some interesting thoughts in here. But everybody, please unmute yourselves and let's chat. We've had a great session so far. We've had 5 amazing people with questions and stories, and we shared some ideas. What do y'all think? Let's network.
So shall we talk about certifications?
Oh,
sure.
wait, before we get into that, before, Korinne, I just wanted to say to you, I was listening to you. So I live by the NIST 800-181 document. That's like the best thing ever. Yeah, so I wanted to say to you, based off what I heard from you in your past experience, the area of cybersecurity that you actually fall into is the same area I'm in, which is the oversee and governance side of cybersecurity.
Right.
So your relationship skills that you mentioned, the customer service skills, and the educational skills, that all falls under overseer governance. So you could look at program management, project management, also policy, because policy is under that area as well. And then also education and awareness is under that area. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Thanks. I did take your advice from one of your posts, and I looked at that standard, the 181, and I went all through it, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. So that did help me so much, I can't tell you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't think you appreciate how valuable the skills you actually have are. And you're worrying about not having these little skills, like the technical stuff. They are a dime a dozen. What you actually have that you think isn't good enough is actually far more valuable. And I love Mansur's advice. I mean, you need to walk in there like you're Beyonce and just strut that. And then they will realize that, holy cow, this is actually what we need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, Corinne, I'm in as we might say, violent agreement with Greg and Dr. Hasib on this. Yeah, I mean, because we can teach you any of those the things we can teach you, right? I even take a little bit of umbrage that we still call it soft skills. That's the wrong word.
Yeah.
It's the people skills, and candidly, digital transformation, fourth IR, what's happening to us in the current, that makes it even more important because candidly, if the computer can do it well, let it do it well, right? You should. That's the right application. It's the people stuff, and that's what you have. We're all seeing that in spades. Like that's really more difficult to teach somebody because it requires a lot of empathy, a lot of EQ to do that, and you already have that. So you should. I agree. Shoulders back. Like I'm gonna help you solve some problems. Like that's how you should approach this.
Right. Thanks.